All right, and we will kick it off because we're right here at the top of the hour. Hi, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining us today. My name is Lisa Jordan. I am the Managing Director of the IEA, and I'm also the Executive Director of the Executives Association of Charlotte in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm excited to introduce Ira today, but before I do that, I just want to give a super quick plug for the IEA conference. Hopefully you've seen our emails. That is coming up here September 30th through October the 2nd in Akron, Ohio. Akron is the birthplace of the IEA, and we are celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. So we're very excited about that. If you go to the IEA website and tab over to conferences, you can find out all the information about the speakers and the agenda. For our social event, we're going to head up to Cleveland for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we are looking forward to a super event, and we would love to see you there. The conference is a great way to put names and faces together and just kind of further expand your networking beyond the four walls of your association and reach out to other like-minded business owners in and around the U.S. and Canada. So please consider attending if you haven't, and if you have questions about the conference, I'll throw my contact information up in the chat and feel free to reach out to me. Okay, that is not why you came today. I recognize that. I know you're here to hear my friend Ira. I've had the pleasure of meeting Ira a couple times in person, namely at IEA conferences and a visit to Las Vegas. And Ira will be joining us in Akron as well. So you can meet Ira in person soon too. And I think you'll want to, especially after today. So these webinars are free for you to attend and free for you to host as an IEA member. So if you have a great topic that you think would be of interest to business owners in and around the US or in Canada, then certainly reach out to me and I would love to help you get scheduled to present later this year. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ira. Ira is a pilot and a former owner of Corporate Flight International. He became a member of Las Vegas execs in 1987. So you were only about 6 years old then, Ira, when you joined?
Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, yes,
That's
that's
good.
excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
His classification was aviation at that time, but after 32 years in the jet charter management industry, Ira decided to sell his company to embark on a fulfilling career as a life coach. Ira's dedication to assisting others began early in his aviation career when he taught and mentored individuals in flying from private pilot to airline transport pilot. His path to becoming a life coach was further shaped 15 years ago when he and his wife encountered challenges with their teen daughter. In 2012, Ira achieved certification as transformational coach, as a transformational coach, and has since developed life and family coaching. Ira offers personalized individual coaching, family coaching, and engaging group presentations. All right, Ira, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Um, and welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Uh, Having a chance to present a little bit of information that might help you in your business is just exciting for me. I've been coaching for about 14 years now, and I've been in front of a cross section of a lot of different people, some that want to work on personal challenges, some that want to work on business challenges, and some that want to work both. Uh, and if somebody were to ask me, what's the one thing that has made the biggest impact in people's lives over these 14 years, it is definitely, my answer would be the four agreements. Uh, so let's get started a little bit. Before we actually get into the four agreements, I like to start with why we're here. Um, Purpose has been a huge thing for me, becoming a coach and in my life. And if you've known the book Start with Why by Simon Sinek, which is a great book to read, uh, it brings out the whole idea of purpose. Purpose for me is the big picture. So I would ask you a question right now, if anybody wants to take this on, what would be your purpose of owning or purchasing a home? And if you want to chime in, please do. I'd love to hear your answer. Purpose for owning or building a home. Anybody?
Building equity.
Okay, yeah. All right. Anybody else?
A stable place, a stability.
Okay, stability. Love that. Absolutely. Um, great.
It
So,
creates a family.
yeah, awesome. I love it. Anybody else?
Having a sense of place for your community and who you are and where you communicate and participate with others.
Yeah, love that. And to me, that's all about purpose. For me, it's a sanctuary, a place to have peace and joy, and know that when I come home, that's always there for me. So that's purpose. The thing about purpose, it drives the vision. So imagine you standing inside your home, you close your eyes and you just kind of just feel what's there, sense what's there. If you put your senses to it, you can see what you have. You can feel what your home is like. You can smell your home. So that's putting your senses, and that gives us vision. And from that, you have goals of which you can then say, oh, I want to build or buy a home in the next year or 2 or 3 or 5, whatever that is. And then the remaining is just putting choices to your actions, so you can develop the steps to buying a home. So the reason I bring that forward today is because I have a purpose in the 4 agreements. I have a purpose in using them. I have a purpose in presenting them. And my purpose today is basically to create teams or individuals, families that have synergistic communication. Now, another book that I use quite often in my coaching is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Some of you might have read it, some of you might know the title. But the 6th habit in this book is called Synergize. And Stephen Covey, who wrote the book, writes that when you communicate synergistically, you simply open your mind and heart to new possibilities and alternatives and new options. And the thing is, synergy in this case is made up of 3 things taken from the book. It's made up of the 4 unique human endowments. Now, you probably don't know what those are. I'll give you a clue of what those are. So they are self-awareness, conscience, creative imagination, and independent will. And to put a little more context to that, your self-awareness is your ability to think about your own thought process, to examine yourself and your paradigms. Conscience is a deep inner awareness of right and wrong and the principles that govern your behavior. Creative imagination is the ability to envision, create, and mentally go beyond your present reality. And then independent will is the ability to act based on your self-awareness, free from all other influences. Those are written by Stephen Covey. If you take those 4 unique human endowments and you combine that with the motive of win-win, in other words, collaborating and have mutually beneficial goals, and combine it with empathic communication or empathetic communication, you will create synergistic communication. And that is my purpose, to present the 4 agreements. Now, my workshops that I do on communication include both the 4 agreements and other titles, which we'll talk about during the presentation and at the end. And they are obviously conduct a lot more time than we have today. So I've kind of truncated a little bit that might help you enjoy some of the 4 agreements and hopefully pursue this even further. So, synergy and communication. This chart from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits, is a chart that basically represents the level of communication that your team would have, or even that your family would have, in the evidence of trust and cooperation. So on the low end, our conversations are characterized by defensiveness and possibly protectiveness. People either fight for their positions, being right, or they check out completely and don't want to speak. Um, Sometimes the conversations become heated and they can be based on somebody winning or losing. Now, up the scale, we have the respectful uh, conversations, which are usually people have respect for each other while they're communicating, but they try to avoid the ugly confrontations that might happen. They communicate politely, but not empathetically. And the highest level of trust results in communication that brings creativity and collaboration and respect and empathy into the conversation. So I ask you to think about this for a moment. And if somebody wants to answer the question, where does your team stand presently on this scale? Are they on the defensive side? Are they respectful? Or do you believe they are communicating synergistically? Anybody want to take that on and answer that? I'd love to hear your what you have to say.
Well, I can answer in my organization. I think it's somewhere between respectful and synergistic.
Okay, great. And tell me a little about your evidence for that.
Uh, Primarily discussion during that time to come to a conclusion of uh, between compromise and understanding the other point of view that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, great, excellent. Anybody else want to comment on their team or?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what.
I was thinking anybody else would like to
Oh,
comment on that.
sorry.
That's okay. Okay, well, let's do a quick introduction of the four agreements. So if you've read the book, you would know that we have four agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions and always do your best. These four agreements, if you take them on, I have actually witnessed and seen people have changed their lives. So if you look at these words underneath each of these, speak with integrity, mean what you say, build trust through your language. On don't take anything personally, others' actions reflect their reality, not yours. So you want to lead from a stable center. On don't make assumptions, always ask, clarify, verify, eliminate the number one source of miscommunication, and always do your best. Think about sustainable excellence, not perfectionism. You're committed to effort. Now, why does this matter to business owners? Well, we took a poll of employees. 70% would cite poor communication as the number one workplace problem. And it is known that teams of people have 3 times higher productivity when they have trust in their cultures. And they use the four agreements and other communication tools and techniques versus their low trust peers. And we don't know how much, but there are millions of dollars lost annually in business from employee disengagement. So the four agreements aren't just a self-help philosophy. They're a proven operating system for high performance leaders and organizations. And the four agreements give leaders a shared language, which we'll talk about as we go through. Here's a little bit about the author. If you've read the book, you probably have taken in some of the philosophies that Don Miguel brings out. But he was born in rural Mexico into a family of healers and the Toltec wisdom, trained as a surgeon before experiencing a near-death part of and changed his path. He apprenticed under his mom, who was a faith healer. In 1997, he published the Four Agreements. It's now in 46 languages and who knows, 40 million copies sold, so on and so forth. The message: transform your life by changing the agreements you make with yourself. So why do business leaders and staff want to read this book? Well, for number one, it's simple. There's no jargon. It's universally accessible. The four agreements are immediately actionable. So when you look at the four agreements, you can immediately put them in play through your meetings, negotiations, your reviews, conversations with your family, with your loved ones. We want to create a shared team vocabulary around accountability. And the Four Agreements does this for you. And of course, it addresses the root cause of workplace conflict. A little bit about the foundation, the Toltec wisdom. So who were the Toltecs? Well, they had ancient wisdom which focused on mastering awareness, transformation, and the nature of the human mind. The philosophy behind it teaches that humans live in a shared dream, a collective reality shaped by their beliefs, judgments, and agreements, those absorbed since childhood. And Don Miguel believes that most of our suffering comes from agreements we never consciously chose. And to put a business parallel on it, every company also lives in a dream, an invisible culture of unspoken rules, assumptions, and agreements. So the four agreements give leaders, business owners, parents a tool to consciously redesign that dream and build trust and excellence in their teams. So what does it mean? So if we break down the four agreements a little bit more, the first one, be impeccable with your word. Okay. The word impeccable, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's free from guilt or blame. But used in the 16th century, it comes from the Latin word impeccabilis, which is not capable of sinning or liable to sin. And in the book, Don Miguel reports this as be impeccable is without sin. So from a practical standpoint, Don Miguel says speak with integrity. On these 4 points here on the slide, it says own your comments. So say what you mean, follow through. Your word is your brand. Okay? Eliminate toxic language in and about your business, your teams, your home. Gossip, criticism, and blame and erode culture. Leaders set the tone. Okay? Give direct, honest feedback. People really like to have honest, kind communication when they're receiving feedback. It builds stronger teams a lot more than polite silence does. And words shape your culture. So use language that inspires, not diminish. Years ago, I found this quote that I really liked. It's about words. I'm a firm believer that words create worlds. And here's this quote that I found that I really love. Okay? Words are singularly the most powerful force available to humanity. We can choose to use this force constructively with words of encouragement or destructively with words of despair. Words have energy, they have power, they have ability to heal, to help, to hinder, to hurt, and to harm, to humiliate and to humble. So by being impeccable with my word, I tend to choose words that of encouragement and to help, to heal, and to humble. I encourage you to think about how words create the worlds around you. Don't take things personally. If I polled 100 people that have read the 4 agreements and I asked the question, which agreement would be the most challenging for you? Probably 80 to 90 of them would come up with, don't take anything personally. And when we think about taking things personally, okay, basically when we're receiving information in a conversation, we are interpreting that information and making it about us if we're taking it personally. In these 4 little points here, we'll receive client complaints. We'll receive team pushback possibly. We will be conducting tough reviews. Okay? The key is to stay calm and to be stable through these challenges. All right? Separate your feedback from identity. A critique of your strategy is not a critique of your worth as a leader. Don't take it personally. Okay? Leaders who take things personally make emotional, short-sighted calls or decisions. So instead of being reactive, think about, stop for a moment, take a breath, analyze what's going on in front of you, and then make a decision based on fact, not emotion. Right? And when you model this, your teams will feel safe. They'll feel safe speaking up and talking and having conversations. And then don't make assumptions. So assumptions are the biggest issue we have with communicating. In clarifying roles and expectation, don't assume your team knows what good or great looks like. Define it for them. Instead of interpreting somebody's behavior based on your assumptions, ask questions. Our assumptions fill in the gaps, and sometimes with our own fear. Don't be afraid to ask a question when you're speaking with somebody. Hey, I noticed a change in the tone of your voice. What's happening? Or I noticed you went from a smile to a frown. What's happening here? Ask questions, get clarity. Unspoken assumptions breed resentment. So if you have unspoken assumptions, bring them into the light early. In a book called Crucial Conversations, they talk about the gap. The gap is the time frame between when you see or hear something and say something or do something about it. And in that gap is where all the mischief happens. All the things are spoken. The gossip happens. The politics happens. So bring all of your assumptions into the light early. And then most project failures trace back to a misunderstanding or a missed question. So get clarity for your team's projects or assignments. So what causes us to make assumptions? Well, there's a few things. Doing some research about this a while back, I found that the brain processes enormous amounts of information constantly. So it takes shortcuts, and assumptions allow us to take shortcuts. They allow us to act quickly without analyzing every situation from scratch. We also pattern match new situations to ones we've encountered before. If something looks familiar, we assume it behaves the same way, even when it doesn't necessarily. And then you may have heard of this, confirmation bias. We tend to seek and accept information that fits what we already believe, what we already know and unconsciously fill in gaps with the details that confirm what we believe or what we know. And the last one is social and cultural conditioning. We as humans absorb beliefs from our family, from our experiences, from our teachings, from the media, from our own individual cultures that become so ingrained that we treat them as facts rather than interpretations. And so assumptions are really important to think about and quell if you're able to ask questions. A while back, I was at a client's office having a conversation, and I noticed a quote taped to their computer screen. And I'll show that quote to you now. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that has taken place. And if you think about it, the assumptions are part of that illusion. So I ask you to find the courage to ask questions and express what you really want. Okay? Don't buy into the illusion. And of course, always do your best. What we want to think about here is the fact that the fourth agreement is about the action of the first three. So the fourth agreement is the action about being impeccable with your word, about not taking things personally, not making assumptions, right? Putting those in action and doing your best. Okay? So what's the philosophy? Okay? The philosophy is a high performance mindset for leaders. Eliminate your guilt driven overwork. Your best is going to differ each day. Think about sustainable output, right? Which beats sprinting until you burn out. Okay? We're all business owners. We're all very busy. We have our businesses to run, possibly our families to take care of. We do a lot. And so sometimes it's time to think about sustainability versus burning yourself out. For leaders, model a growth culture. Those that model a growth culture create teams that innovate fearlessly. I've actually seen this in action. And demand consistency and effort, not perfection. When we demand perfection, we introduce the possibility of fear of failure. So you want to reduce that. Right? And of course, make action a habit. Taking action is the antidote for self-judgment. And you might have heard this quote, I heard it many, many years ago, is that universe rewards action, not just thinking. So how do we put these in action? What do they look like when we put them in action? In this slide, we have on the left side, breaking the agreement, on the right side, keeping the agreement. So think about a few of these as we read through them. Here's a statement. We'll have that ready by Friday, said to secure a deal, knowing the team can't deliver. Versus, we can realistically deliver by Wednesday the following week. Let me confirm with my team first. Again, keeping the agreements, be impeccable with your word. How about telling an employee that a coworker's performance is a real problem behind closed doors? It's almost to the point of gossiping at that point. And the whole idea is to address performance concerns directly and privately with the individual involved. Don't send mixed signals. Praising the strategy publicly while expressing doubts to your inner circle. Wow, what does that create? How about voicing reservations in the right form at a strategy or company meeting with the facts and proposed alternatives? Okay. And this is a good one. I've heard several people do this. You might hear the same. I'll look into it as a conversation at the end of a conversation with no intention of following up. To be impeccable, I'll give you an answer by Thursday and then actually doing it. Or if you get delayed, proactively updating your agreement. And I love this statement on the bottom is that the cost of being impeccable is mostly or momentary discomfort. It can be uncomfortable to be impeccable. But the cost of carelessness is lost trust. And that could take a very long time to rebuild. Taking things personally. Okay? You'll see in the beginning here, in number 1, it says trigger. Well, what is a trigger? Anybody want to comment on a trigger? What triggers you? If you want to open up your mic, tell me what triggers you. Okay.
A violation of a value.
A violation of values. Excellent. Yes, very much so. Anybody else? What triggers you?
I'd say trying to convince, talking to stupid people triggers me. So
Mhm.
I second that one. Stupid
Okay.
people and stupid people driving.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So that's
Evasiveness,
what was that?
evasiveness,
Evasiveness. Absolutely. Yes. How about rejection or abandonment? How about feeling disrespected or even unseen or unheard? All these things can trigger us as people. Okay? Whether you're a leader, whether you're a mom or a dad, they can trigger us. Right? So the key here, when you feel triggered, is that we tend to take that personally. We tend to let it reflect on who I am as a person. And if we remember that in the statement in the 4 agreements, what others do are not a reflection on you. It's their personal reality at the moment in time. An example would be if I'm in a conversation with somebody or different set of people, and somebody says, "Oh, Ira, you're an idiot," and I can take that, I can accept that information and say to myself, "Gee, am I an idiot?" Or I can analyze that and say, well, that's their perception of me and possibly what I said at that moment. And then I can relax a little bit and say, wow, that was interesting. How did you come to that conclusion? What did I create for you that you then use the words, I'm an idiot, and possibly find out what's going on in that particular situation. But what happens is we tend not always to react defensively. We respond emotionally, and sometimes we make emotional decisions very quickly. We blame, and sometimes we withdraw. So the key is to break that reactivity loop, if you will. Right? When you react poorly and defensively and you make quick decisions, you sometimes trust erodes. Possibly your people around you, your team shuts down. And then sometimes we repeat the cycle, and now it's even worse. Leaders who can break that reactivity loop become an emotional anchor for their team or their business. So I encourage you, become that emotional anchor. There's a great saying, a great quote, an analogy in the book Crucial Conversations. And it basically reads like this. We see or hear something, then we feel, our emotions get in there, and then we act. So we see or hear, we feel, and then we act. If you can stop for a moment after the feeling and say, wow, I just feel disrespected here. I'm going to take a moment, take a breath, and then I'm going to say, wow, what just happened in front of me? What was said that now I feel disrespected? How can I react in a way now that is not reacting defensively or emotionally? So that's breaking the reactive chain, if you will. All right. In making assumptions, all right? In the strategy side and the marketing side, this was really good here. We assume our customers still want what they wanted 3 years ago. But what can we do? We can ask, what do your customers actually need now? And when was the last time we even asked them? On the delegation side, when we delegate, we assume employees know what done well means. Well, if we assume that, then we might get a surprise of, well, I thought it was done well. But instead, ask them, what does done well look like for you? What does success look like for this particular task specifically? On the conflict side, we make assumptions when an email, a short email comes across our desk. In my workshops, I spent quite a bit of time talking about electronic communication. Because when we communicate in front of each other, we have all the pieces of communication. We have the words, we have the body language, we have the facial expressions, we have the hand gestures, we have the facial expressions that go with it. We have all that. But when we communicate electronically, we only have the remaining 10% of the conversation. And what do we do as humans? We fill in the blanks. We make up the emotions on the other side. So what can we do? Well, we can ask. You read that short email and you go, whoa, I don't want to make an assumption of what that meant. Let me ask a question. And there's an example in it. Is everything okay between us? I want to make sure we're aligned. I want to make sure we're on the same page. In your own words, of course. And on the culture side, when we're in a meeting, if we assume silence in a meeting means agreement, then we're missing something. So ask your folks. I haven't heard from everyone. What am I missing? What are people hesitant to say if we don't ask the questions? And the antidote to assumption is definitely not more meetings. It's better questions. So how do we work all these together? The compounding effect of working together. This is just one scenario that you could possibly think of many more that to put this all together. So in this particular one, a key client sends an angry email threatening to pull their contract. Your team is demoralized. A product deadline is tomorrow. What do you do? Well, in the essence of being impeccable with your word, you send a measured, honest reply to the client and a clear acknowledgement, a realistic timeline and a commitment you can keep, not an overpromised panic. In taking things personally, you recognize that the client's anger is about their situation, not your worth. or your team's worth, or your business's worth for that matter. You stay composed, you lead calmly, and you don't take the email home with you emotionally. Before deciding anything, you call the client to understand what they actually need. Turns out, in this case, the timeline was the real issue, not the quality of the product, which you assumed. And in doing your best, you rally the team with focused energy, not frantic perfectionism. Everyone gives their best available effort, and you get to protect the team's dignity in the process. So I'm sure you can come up with a lot of different scenarios how you can combine all four agreements. Okay? The outcome is so much better when you put these together and work with them. Now, putting them into practice, there's lots of ways to do this. Here are four of them. So the first one is the 30-day team challenge. You track every commitment made and kept. Replace assumptions with questions. Notice when personalizing. Pause. If you're taking something personally and you feel it, just pause for a minute. Okay. Take a breath. Review. Where did you give your full best? You can do a leadership language audit. Okay, record one team meeting or more if you like. Count the complaints versus the solutions offered. Track the blame language versus ownership language. And then set an improvement benchmark. Choice of how long is yours. Okay. Think about clarity for a minute. Before every project, write out your explicit expectations. End every meeting with, hey, are there any assumptions here? Are there any assumptions coming up for you guys? Okay. Use your check-in questions. Okay. What was this meeting about? What did you hear me say? Let's get clarity on what we're doing here today, folks. And create an assumption log so that you can go back and look at the same situation that comes up again and say, what assumptions were made last time that we don't want to make this time? And then, as far as always do your best, define best by context, not comparing. In my leadership programs, I introduce energy management alongside time management. For me, it's not necessarily time management. It's where I want to put my energy. And replace why didn't you with what got in your way. Those type of questions, using what questions, allows people to think their way through and give you an answer that's different. Okay? That has more effect on the situation. And folks, celebrate not just your outcomes, but celebrate the growth. Celebrate the effort that was put in. We all love to celebrate our wins. Oh, we got the contract, or the widget that we built was turned out to be the best. But don't miss out on celebrating the effort and the growth in your teams. Here's some discussion questions for your teams. Right? So, first agreement, where has unclear language created misaligned expectations? Okay. Again, where have I created a misaligned expectations in the language that I used during our meeting or during our team trainings? All right, taking things personally. Can you recall a time you took feedback personally that held back a good decision? These are good questions to ask your team. What's one assumption baked into our current strategy that we have never tested? and always doing your best. How do we define best? And is that definition sustainable for our people? Maybe you need to redefine it. Ask questions about what they think best is. It's not just us as leaders deciding these things. We need the input of the smart people around us. And then considering all 4 agreements, which of the 4 agreements would have the biggest impact on our culture today? Get some input on that. Leaders who win keep their agreements. So I challenge you to pick an agreement or more than one and apply it to your very next conversation. Think about being impeccable with your word. Think about whatever's said to me during this conversation, I'm not going to take personally. Think about what assumptions am I making currently that I am missing something. And think about always doing my best, no matter what. And we can analyze at the end of the day, we can look back and say, did I do my best? Well, yeah, I did really good in this area. I can improve myself in this area. So let's work on that. And that's the philosophy behind always doing your best. Here is a leadership assessment. And I like this because if you rate yourself honestly, a 1 through 5, 1 being rarely, and 5 being consistent, you can come up with a score. And think about these questions for a moment. I follow through on every commitment I make to my team. Okay. 1, I do that rarely. 5, I do that consistently. Where do you stand? Okay. I address performance concerns directly rather than venting to others. I stay emotionally steady when receiving negative feedback or criticism. I make decisions based on facts, not assumptions about others' intentions. I ask clarifying questions before starting any major project or delegation. I check for alignment at the end of meetings. I do my best work regardless of mood, pressure, or recognition. And I protect my team from burnout by modeling sustainable effort. These are questions that you take a self-assessment. You'll see the scores on the bottom. I believe anybody taking the self-assessment, it provides for a growth opportunity regardless of your score. Thinking about the culture in your business, thinking about the culture of your teams. Right? This is a 90-day leadership roadmap. If the first 30 days, read the book with your team, complete the self-assessment, identify your personal number 1 agreement to work on, share your commitment with your colleagues. Right? The next 30 days, introduce the framework in your team meetings. For those that on this call that I have worked with, you know that I'm always talking about the 4 agreements. It is so important to include in your language, in your meetings, in your life. Create a shared language. In my workshops, when I have a team of people and introduce the 4 agreements I have them make an agreement with each other that they can call each other out on any of the agreements without retribution. Think about the power of people opening up a conversation with the beginning of like, hey Joe, I overheard that conversation. and I thought maybe you might have taken that personally. Did you? What this does, it opens up a conversation for you to self-reflect and analyze. Yeah, maybe I did take it personally. Why did I take it personally? What was my trigger? Okay. Or what assumptions did you make? Okay. Have your team be able to ask you, hey, boss, what assumptions did you make in this situation? Okay. You can have a weekly 10-minute check-in for each of your team. One win for each agreement put into action, as an example. And you need to model your own words publicly. Right? Lead with being impeccable with your word. At the end of this 90 days, you can add agreements to your performance conversations. You can survey your team versus trust versus cooperation. Going back to our chart, has your synergistic communication improved? Has it climbed the scale? You can build the 4 agreements into onboarding for new hires. Imagine starting people out from the very beginning talking about the 4 agreements, and recognize and celebrate your examples publicly. This can be a cultural transformation for your business. Now, what I would like to finish and open up some questions for is, here's some additional reading. Now, the workshops that I do involve not only the 4 agreements, but they involve a lot of areas in communication. So there's lots of books out there that talk about communication. These are some of the titles. You've heard me say a few of them today. The 5th Agreement, written by Don Miguel and his son, Jose, talks about the 5th agreement, which is be skeptical, learn to listen. That book takes the 4 agreements and expands them even further, and it's a really good read. Some of you have listened to me and worked with me in the area of crucial conversations. It's one of my favorites, and it's 4 agreements is the catalyst to actually working crucial conversations. You can't have people having conversations where they're not impeccable with their word. They're taking things personally and making assumptions. Right? The 7 habits of highly effective people we've talked a little about today. Powerful lessons in personal change. Stephen Covey was a great speaker. He was a great writer. He was a great coach. If you ever had a chance to listen to him speak, he was truly an amazing man. And of course, Start with Why. Simon Sinek book I read several years ago, and it's a great book. How great leaders inspire everyone to take action. And that's what I want you guys to do, is inspire your folks to take action with the 4 agreements. All right. If you want to pursue doing some workshops, I have my contact information in front of you, both email and phone. I want to hear your feedback. I want to hear your comments about the webinar. So email me if you like. And I'll open it up to some questions if anybody has anything they'd like to ask or talk about.
Ira, that was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with all of us. I know I was taking a couple screenshots during that, so I can come back and review it. I wanted to mention I was introduced to Simon Sinek by one of my execs members, but through his TED Talk, actually, you can hear him on. It's very readily available on YouTube. So if you're not a reader and prefer a TED Talk, that's a great way to consume the information as well.
Absolutely. And all these books are on audio if people like to listen to books instead of read. So whatever your format is, I encourage you to read and listen. And this webinar is going to be recorded and on YouTube. Is that correct, Lisa?
That's right. Yeah, probably in the next day or so, it'll be available on the IEA YouTube page. So just
Good.
go to the IEA website and click through to it. You can share
Sure.
it.
And if you want copies of the slides, just email me. I'd be glad to send them out to you. You can also review the webinar, of course, on the YouTube channel that way. But for instance, if you wanted the self-assessment, I can email that to you. Just let me know. So any questions today? Any comments? Any feedback?
Ira, you're awesome. Thank you so much for putting this on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Great job. I enjoyed it and very meaningful.
Good. Yeah, it's a brief. My normal workshops take a lot longer, and we dive a lot more into the individual agreements and how they affect in both personal and business. But this is just we only have an hour, so I tried to condense it and make it as meaningful as I could for you folks.
Thanks, Ira. It's a good refresher for anyone who hasn't worked with Ira before. I've had the pleasure of working with him many times over the years, and he is very insightful and has a way of figuring out the ails that get you. So thanks for being such a problem solver, Ira. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim. That was very nice. I appreciate it.
Just a quick comment on the essential rating. One of the books, again, Don Miguel's The Voice and Knowledge. For me, that was a great follow-up to the Four Agreements because that was a hook for the whys.
Yes.
I found that definitely kind of attached all of set the foundation for what the Four Agreements were all about, and it was a good thing to read after the Four
Yes.
Agreements.
Very good. Thank you for bringing that up. I've read most of Don Miguel's books and his sons, and they're all have a special meaning and brought a lot of meaning to my life and my coaching. So thank you for bringing that forward.
And I want to second Kim's comments about Ira and how he's helped us over the years, looking at us personally. My wife and I has owned the business and also working with our employees and then taking all that action into our business. It's been a great journey and I'd highly recommend it. It really changed our lives. So thank you, Ira.
Thank you, Dale.
And I concur as well. I've been working with Ira and he's amazing. Really helped me through a lot of facets. And it's funny how this can apply to all kinds of things. Like as he knows, I run an HOA, and a lot of this is more for me along that versus my professional life. So it can apply to all aspects of your life that you're a leader, whether in your home or your business. It's communication is key, and I really agree with that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Russ.
Well, you brought your fan club, Ira, that's for sure.
I paid them well.
Well, if we don't have anything else to ask, then I will adjourn us for today. And please reach out to Ira. His email address is there on the screen. I put my email in the chat earlier if you'd like to talk about a webinar or have general IEA questions or questions about the conference. Would love to hear from you. And yeah, look for this on YouTube later this week. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.